Good morning to everyone that is joining us here. Thank you so very much for joining. Welcome to our Genuine Talk focused on networking. Let's just start with some transparency. I'm going to start by sharing the word networking makes my throat close right on up. So if you are in a similar situation, you are absolutely in the right place. If you are fabulous at networking, as my guest here is, then you are still in the right place because we need your voice in this conversation. So really excited to welcome those of you who have joined so far and those who may be listening in on the recording. If I'm really honest though, it's not the connecting or the building of relationships or even the sharing of ideas that's problematic for me. I actually very much enjoy meaningful conversation and collaboration. What I struggle with is the small talk that it takes to get to that meaningful part. I struggle with introducing myself to a group of strangers at a conference or inserting myself into a conversation in what feels like a meaningful and appropriate way. So guess what? I spent my career letting my work speak for itself. And don't get me wrong, that wasn't a bad thing, right? You do really great work and it does speak for itself, and that's great. I was fortunate to have some incredible leaders and people in my life that gave me some exposure opportunities, and I certainly wouldn't have made those for myself. So I'm certainly not living with any regrets. It's all good, but I'm learning, as is everyone, right? So what I really want to talk about is if you don't have all of that great support sitting right there for you, as I just spoke about with the leaders who helped me when I wasn't helping myself, you really can get over those challenges that you may be having. Networking is part of marketing yourself. And having a strong network allows you to learn and grow in ways that you just can't do on your own. And I read somewhere that it's estimated that up to 85% of positions are filled through networking. So that's not a number we can ignore. We just, whether you're job searching or not, whatever your next opportunity is, or even being greater fulfilled in your current opportunity, you can't ignore the power of networking. So let me introduce you to a really dynamic leader and a coach that looks at every interaction as a networking opportunity. She makes the most of those opportunities, and I have been learning from her for the bulk of this year. We just met earlier in 2020, and I'm so excited for all of us to learn from her today and change our mindsets around networking and our outcomes, quite frankly. So Carmen, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your knowledge, your approach to this really important topic. I'll stop talking for a moment and give you a minute to introduce yourself to the group, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi, Nancy, and thank you for this opportunity and welcome everyone. So Nancy and I are very excited about this opportunity to have a conversation. I want us to really have some dialogue and answer your questions and have some fun with the discussion. But I am a senior global HR leader. I've been in HR for over 20 years. And I've managed large-scale organizations within HR, global, not so global, but various companies that are Fortune 200 and 500 companies. And so, I've always networked in my career. I do it internally and I do it externally. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about how it can enrich not just your career, but more so just the life that you lead, that you live every day. So those are some of the things we're going to talk about, and make sure that we leave you with something that can help you on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you. I am really excited. And to our audience that's here, welcome. I just want to say, Carmen and I, have some things we plan to chat about. I've got some questions for her, but really this is about you. So please use the chat functionality to communicate with us, I'll try to do a good job of balancing both, or come on off mute if there's an opportunity to do so and ask your question. More than happy for you to do that. Really want this to be beneficial to you. So Carmen, why don't we start with just some level setting? I always like to start conversations with level setting to make sure definitions are clear. So tell us how you define networking.
Sure. So I keep it simple. It's not textbook or anything for me. For me, it is about the art and science of just making a connection. And that connection is with individuals, that connection is with corporations, that connection is with nonprofit organizations or groups of people. It's pretty broad, but it is about just making that connection and having the conversations to get to know people. So that's how I define it. It's pretty simple, but that's what it is.
Well, tell us a little bit about when you first realized that networking and making those connections was really a thing. Like, tell us how you got started in your approach to networking.
Yeah, so it was in 2008, I remember, because a couple years before that, my husband told me about LinkedIn. So you would think, being in HR, I would have known about LinkedIn on my own, but I didn't. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I joined LinkedIn, and, in 2008, I was transitioning within the role that I had at the time. But it was an opportunity for me to figure out if I wanted to go back into corporate America or if I wanted to do consulting on my own. So I started my own consulting business for the first time in 2008. Well, in doing that, naturally, you have to get out and meet people. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of was shifting gears in my career so that I can get more out into the community. And so that's how I started. And I joined an organization called Get Dot. And I remember when I mentioned this to Nancy, she was like, what is that? I was like, yeah, pretty interesting name. But it was, and I had to look it up to make sure I got it right. But it's about good excuse at that time, in 2008, a good excuse to donate, to drink on Thursday. That's what it was about. And I was intrigued by the name. I was like, okay. So when I went, it was a lot of HR people, mostly recruiters. And we talked about a variety of things, not just recruiting, not just in HR, but just in business and nonprofit. It was so many things we talked about. And I was just so intrigued with that organization. Today, it has grown. And the name now is Good Excuse to Donate on Thursday. And they turned it into a nonprofit organization. So they're still networking, but they're giving back to the communities that they serve and do business in. And so that's how I got into networking. And it just kind of builded on that. I started joining organizations and, meeting people, and not just people within HR, but people in all areas of life.
Yeah, yeah. And really important point, because there is benefit and value in making sure that your network is broader than your current role, right? So I think that's really important. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the diversity of your network a little later in our conversation. But when you think about your network, so you meet folks, right? Whether it's through an organization like Get Dot, or at work, or on LinkedIn, right? Or in the grocery store, because I know I can see you having a conversation in the grocery store line and making a connection, right? Tell me about keeping that network current though, right? It's one thing to build your LinkedIn, I'll say, network, right? And you've got all these connections out there, but then it's this list of names. And when you need to draw on that, it needs to be current, right? And not feel like you're inappropriately knocking on someone's door. So talk to me a little bit about the strategies you use to just keep that broad network current and alive.
Right. Well, I'll be honest, I'm not always organized as I should be, but I do have a spreadsheet that I use. And when I'm out and about and I'm meeting people, I generally do get their business card, or I will definitely write down the information. And then when I get home, I apply that information to my spreadsheet. And it's important to put down the date that you met the individual, their full name, and if you, where they work, what or some of the things that you talked about, just a summary, something that it engaged you in the conversation in a way that you were intrigued, and so that you can follow up on when you have your next conversation with them. So I put all of that into my spreadsheet. Now, there are times I get a little bit behind, but I do have my notes and I do have the business card. So I will make a point to go back at some point, but it's something that you do have to do and keep up on. I won't go past a month that I haven't looked at that sheet, because that's my way of keeping connections, following up. And if I promise something, okay, first, I don't promise anything that I can't deliver or that I'm not going to deliver. So I have to be able to remember, especially if I commit to something in that conversation, and I make note of that in that spreadsheet as well as my other notes, so that I can look back on it, and then in a timely manner, making sure that I'm fulfilling that commitment with that individual. That is so important. So yeah, having some type of approach and style to keeping track of everything is important. And it doesn't have to be elaborate, just, a spreadsheet of some kind, or a notebook that you want to jot everything in. That's fine too.
And if the opportunity to connect with someone doesn't naturally present itself, I presume you're proactive in just reaching out and saying, hi, it's been a little while, how are you doing? Or some of the things I always learned was, if you see an article or something that you think would be of benefit to someone, just send it to them, right? Hey, thought of you when I saw this article about engagement, because I know that's a hot topic for you. Those kind of little things that aren't asking for anything, but giving little nuggets of value along the way, right?
Exactly.
Keep that connection clear.
Yes, always. That's very important, and just to reach out for no reason, really, just to ask, how they're doing, or it's, an email, it's been a couple weeks, or it's been a month, and just reach out for no reason at all, but just simple kindness, and to say hello and ask how they're doing. That's really important.
Simple kindness. There's a t-shirt in there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely a t-shirt in there. Well, yeah. Let's talk about just some of the value of having a diverse network. We touched on that just a few moments ago. So can you give your perspective on the benefit of that? And maybe we start with even talking, in my mind, a diverse network is diversity as we kind of think of it traditionally, right? Race, sexual orientation, those kind of things. I think you need to have people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, socioeconomic differences. I am looking at someone who's here from Germany today. So even having perspective outside of our little USA bubble, I'm so happy to see her here. But, diversity is broad, but then also outside of your industry, outside of your company, outside of your department, right? There are all those different levels. So talk to me a little bit about the value of having that diverse network, and then also, how to build that diverse network.
Right. So first, I'm passionate. So let me just go ahead and say, my superpower is engagement. That's my superpower. So, and that engagement is about reaching out across all backgrounds, all industries, all, whatever, or just across the globe. And I recognize that being in HR and having a global platform, I'm able to do that and have met and still keep in contact with many people across the globe. And so I value that. For me, it's the ability to learn and to meet someone new, someone that doesn't look like me, someone that doesn't speak like me, someone that doesn't do the types of things that I do in my career or even outside of my career. That's intriguing to me. And so that's how I grow, by having the ability to just reach out and just ask a question. How are you today? Or, if I'm in a different country, whether I'm traveling for work or outside of work, I like getting engulfed into their culture. What do they do when they wake up in the morning? In Rome, they walk a few blocks and they go and to their favorite, to their favorite cappuccino place, and they do a shot. And when you see them coming in, I mean, it's quick. They come in, they get their shot, and they're out. And so for me, it's like, I see those opportunities to just really engulf in a culture, really engulf into that individual, and how we can learn and grow from each other just by having a conversation. And sometimes the conversation is 15 minutes, and other times the conversation is an hour. It just depends on the situation and where you are, but there's so much value you can gain when you step out of your comfort zone and allow yourself to just engage with someone that is different from you, or lives in a different area than you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that curiosity factor, right? I mean, first of all, it helps us just to break down, stereotypes, because it's easy to hang on to your stereotypes until you know someone and realize they are so much more dynamic and magnificent than that stereotype you got from television or, what you learned growing up.
Right.
And that happens in those one-on-one interactions, right? And so to my point at the beginning, I love the deep down, conversation. I love getting to know others. My struggle is the, saying hello and starting that conversation. But once you can get yourself past that, there's nothing but beauty waiting for you on the other side.
Absolutely.
Love that. Can you remember a time that you weren't comfortable with networking, Carmen?
See, I can remember. That's a great question. So I can remember, I won't say I wasn't comfortable with the networking. I was uncomfortable in the setting.
Okay.
And it was because, it was a networking event. It was at a bar. But when I walked in, I felt like, a flashback from college, right? Like a frat party or something, or fraternity or sorority party. And everybody was drinking pretty heavily. And, that's just not my style. I enjoy a glass of wine every now and then, but, it just wasn't my style. So I could pick up instinctively when I walked in that it had a different purpose. And for me, that's important. It's about your brand. It's about your purpose. It's about your why. And that environment wasn't conducive to that for me. And so, needless to say, I didn't stay long. I didn't even feel comfortable with approaching anyone to even start up a dialogue, because I could see, the tone of things that were happening just wasn't good for me. And so I left.
Yeah, that's really good guidance, regardless of the situation. A networking event, a business meeting, right? Going to a restaurant, on your own time, whatever. If the environment does not feel right to you, it's okay to pack up and go, right? Better to do that, even in a business setting, than to find yourself in, an awkward or unfortunate situation. So that's really good guidance, because, now prior to COVID, of course, but there are events and conferences and, all these different things, right, that as a business professional, you're expected to partake in. And some of those are really good. And some of those just aren't a good use of your time. Even if it's not an unsafe environment, it's just not a good use of your time. And so giving yourself permission to say, I'm going to go spend my time, you know, in a better way is absolutely
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. That's important. You own that, you know. And I've just growing up, I was always taught to be, aware of your surroundings and the space that you're putting yourself in, right? And so those things, they stay with me, even in my career today. That's very important.
Yeah, excellent guidance. Thank you. So I'm going to pause for a moment and just check in with those of us who are here with us live to see what questions or comments you might have for Carmen. Feel free to come off mute and share.
Hey Nancy, this is Ginny Kimball. How
Hi,
are ya?
Jenny. I am great. Look at you. You look great.
Great, nice to see you. Hey Carmen, just a question for you. This is something I'm wondering about when you talk about the network, and it's very much resonating a lot of the things you're saying. I'm wondering about. I'll just speak to personally. A roadblock for me is now taking that network, and it's the asking for help. Right. And I think as a job seeker, like that's a barrier I'm really having a hard time getting over. Like now I'm on the end of having to ask for help, and that's a really hard thing to do. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. So, first, I'm going to impart some wisdom from my mother, who is no longer here today, but it stays with me. And as a young girl, I was taught, and you've probably heard this before, that a closed mouth never gets fed. Right? So
Yes.
think about that. As a young child, and your mom telling you that, and at first you have no idea what that means. You think you're not going to get food, but as I grew and I came encountered with different situations that I needed to ask for help, or I wanted something in my life as you get older, that stays with me.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, and it's about breaking down, not being afraid of a no, because we all get no's in our lives. But if you do not ask the question and be vulnerable, you don't know what you're going to receive, and you won't receive. So it's about thinking about it in that perspective, that no matter what happens, you're still going to be okay.
Yeah.
And just ask the question, whatever that question might be. And for me, again, it's simple kindness. It's the way that you ask. It's how you position yourself in an email, how you position yourself when you're reaching out face to face. It's how you choose to show up. And what I mean by that, I am not about titles. I've had many titles and many roles and achieved many things. That is not what I bring to the table when I'm making my ask. I'm bringing my whole self. It's who I am as a person. It's what my heart is. That's what people want to see.
Yeah.
So think of it in that framework in terms of showing up as your whole self, being kind, and positioning your ask in a way that is making a connection with that individual. You want to get to know them. And along the way, as you're having your conversation, generally what happens is that you don't even have to ask for anything specifically. They will ask, how can I help you? Because you've had dialogue, they've gotten to know you, and generally what happens, kind of just, naturally, they'll ask you, how can I help you?
Thank you. That's good dialogue. It's the weakness of pride.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but ask you that question.
Yeah.
I still do all the
Yeah.
time. It's one of my favorite memories of my mom, you
Yep.
know,
It's
because
a
it
good
works.
one. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was an amazing question, Jenny, and thanks for being vulnerable here to ask that. And what I would remind you is when you're on the receiving end of someone who says, hey, can I bug you for a moment? Could you possibly introduce me to Carmen? Because I have a, interest in her company, but I don't know how to approach her. You wouldn't give a second thought, right?
Yes.
You would make
Yes.
that introduction, and you would do so happily for that person in your network. And really, we have to remember that that same grace is on the other side, right?
Yep.
So
I agree.
now I'm not saying there aren't some jerks in the world, because they are, but what is there? I read something this weekend. There's 7 billion people in the world. Don't let one, jerk change
Yeah.
how you view yourself and the world. So put those aside. The great majority are going to take that request the same way you would if you were on the receiving end. And so you got to just kind of lean into that discomfort, and I think you'll find a smile on the other end and a willingness to, 30 minutes to meet with you, or to introduce you to someone else, or to tell you a little bit more about the job that you might be looking at. Folks are more than happy and willing to help. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent question. Thanks for that, Jenny. Anyone else in our audience have a question for Carmen?
I do. This is Pamela West. Hello.
Hi, Pamela. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Okay, so
Hi, Pam.
hi, Carmen. I don't really consider myself an introvert per se, but I guess I'm asking maybe for the good of the group, when you're just not really comfortable with approaching people. It has been so long since I've had to network, and so I find myself struggling a little bit, and starting off with a joke like, hey, how about this 2020, eh? But I'm curious, how do you start the conversation? How do you approach? Is it still appropriate just ask like what you do for a living? How is this networking game in this new COVID 2020 era? Any advice you can offer there?
Yes. So that's actually one of the things that Nancy and I have been talking about. So COVID has, shook things up a bit, right? And I think it's taking people even more so out of their comfort zone. And then, so I'll just use myself as an example, perfect example, because I just relocated. So full disclosure, I know Miss Pam West. I met her actually back in 2007, 2008, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And we were networking. That's how we met. And so I think when I recently relocated from Columbus, Ohio to Phoenix, Arizona, and I had just started my business, West Advantage HR Consulting. And so naturally I'm here and I'm starting anew. And, when I first got here, I was out and about, meeting people, attending events, and that's how I met Nancy. And we started going to events together and all that. But then COVID hit. And so, honestly, I didn't reach out to people, the first couple of months, because everybody was feeling the same thing I was feeling in terms of what is going on. People needed time to process what was going on, and get to the grocery store and stock up, and all that stuff. So make sure they had enough toilet paper. So I didn't want to just reach out to people. And plus I was just so new. So, but after that, what I did was I went to my spreadsheet. I had all of my names of the people that I had met so far. And I reached out via email. I just formulated a nice follow-up email from the last time that we had met, and kind of reiterated who I was, my background, just recently relocating here, and but then really focus the conversation on how they are doing and, you know, what are they going through right now, and, you know, would be open to having a Zoom call or a phone call just to kind of catch up, a quick 15 minutes. And there were some people who responded back, you know, in the email, and we just chatted and offered to keep me in mind, you know, if they hear of any opportunities here. And then other people I had Zoom meetings with, you know, they wanted to meet one-on-one on a Zoom call. But really, it was just about formulating that simple email to reach out to people and remain connected. That's really all it takes. And like Nancy said, you know, the majority of people generally want to help. It's about the conversation I just had with Jenny, just being able to be vulnerable and make the ask, but put that simple kindness into your ask in terms of asking about them and how they're doing and how you can help them. And in return, you get that help in return. So it's not being afraid to just kind of shake it up a bit, even though we're in COVID. You're still reaching out to people via emails or phone calls and scheduling those Zooms. And even on this call, you know, write down the people that are in this chat. Everybody that chose to attend, reach out to them, mention this event, and that's what you do, as well as attend webinars. So I'm an HR junkie, so I've been keeping up on everything COVID and you know, everything that's going on in business and all of that. And I've been attending these webinars, educating myself, but at the same time, giving to the platform of the discussion and then taking names and introducing myself to people in the chat, those people that I really make a connection with in that chat. And when you do that, then, you know, schedule a call or a Zoom discussion after that. I was on a call Saturday, so I'm getting ingrained in the community because that's what I do. And this organization here in Arizona wants me to be a part of their board advisor organization. And we were on a Zoom call on Saturday, you know, kind of giving an update on everything that's going on in the organization. And in doing so, I got a chance to meet everybody. It was my first meeting. So I met everybody, took their names, but there are a couple people, you know, once I gave them my background and everything, they reached out in chat. They wanted to connect with me more on something global. And I was like, absolutely, gave them my contact information. And from there, we already have a meeting scheduled to meet this week, tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So even though you're not face-to-face and it's all virtual, it's still just a matter of just putting yourself out there, sharing who you are and what you can bring to the table and how you can help people, just making that connection just by simply being true, being you. That's all people expect. Just be you.
Another great t-shirt. There we go. I'm going into the t-shirt business with Carmen sayings after that. Be you. You know, Carmen, the thing I'd add to that, and I'd love your perspective on, but I feel like we sometimes forget the value we add to the networking relationship, right? So we feel like, you know, we're asking or we're taking something, but, you know, introducing yourself and starting to get to know someone, like you said, I love the idea of connecting with someone in the chat. I often, if I attend a webinar, I'll send a LinkedIn request to the person who was featured in the webinar and say, you know, I really connected with what you said, or it really resonated with me. I'd love to have you as part of my network. But I hadn't thought about that with participants, right? Because those are like-minded folks who are there to learn and grow as well. So that's another great opportunity. But you got to also just remember that you bring something to that networking relationship for them, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, you may feel like you're being a little selfish, but think about how you can add value to their journey as well. We're all on a journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for that question. That was amazing. I know that Paula has a question. So Paula, I'm going to pause and let you come off of mute and ask your question to Carmen.
Thanks, Nancy. I'm taking notes on what you just said there. I'm with Jenny and suddenly feeling really vulnerable and having difficulty, sort of needing something from someone else. So it's great to, thanks for that, I guess. It's great to remember that we do all have something to contribute as well.
Mhm.
So Carmen, this is great. You've got so many good tips for these one-on-ones. I have a question about the group aspect of it. So I got a kick out of that DOT group you mentioned at the beginning. I'd like to find a group like that, frankly, your original group. But so that's one of those things, right? Today I think, well, this is a group I should join. And then I try to get a feel for sort of what are they all about? And I've actually had a couple of, whoa, this is not for me moments. And so I'm just wondering if you have any tips, or is there anything you can share about how you selected the groups you wanted to join and invested your time in?
Yeah, thanks. So first, Paula, your name, when I heard your name, I thought you were my sister.
Oh,
Sister's joined. That's great.
Carmen, let me tell you something. That is your sister. You just don't know it yet. Paula is the other person in my life that if we're in an airport together, she's having a conversation with the person over here. She's talking to someone in the grocery store. She's making that connection while I'm in my book like this, right? Trying not to make eye contact. So you just don't know that that's your sister
Okay.
yet.
All right. So nice to meet you, Paula, and great question. So, oh wow, I just need a second to think about that. I migrate to groups and organizations that that benefit women. Honestly, I'm all about the empowerment of women. And reaching back and reaching forward and helping them in some way. That's important to me. But then to different nonprofit organizations. So, when I was in Columbus, Ohio, I was involved in so many different organizations. The YWCA, the Center for Healthy Families, and many others. And so I guess I look at it in a sense of, what are those organizations or groups that just really touch my spirit in terms of what I'm, enjoy providing and supporting in the community. So I think that's how I look at it. And then one organization that I recently shared with Pam that's on the call today is called WELD, Women for Economic Leadership Development. And that's an organization for women where they really foster the care of how women show up today, not just in the workforce, but just in the world. And they cultivate those teachings around being a leader and giving back to your community and all of that. So, and I'm not sure if you're in Arizona or Ohio or where you are, but no matter where you are, look at those groups and those organizations that are things that really touch your heart, that you're passionate about, that because you want to give your time. And when you give your time, which is really, rare, people got so many things going on in the world. You want to make sure that time is well spent, that you're giving back to that group, to the individuals within that group, that you take on opportunities where you can volunteer your time much broader than just attending an event. Because that's how you grow, and that's how you get to meet even more people, and people get to know you at different levels than just attending and seeing you at an event and meeting you at the event, which is all great. But when it's something you're really passionate about, you're willing to give your time, volunteer, you get to know even more people, and then people reach out to you. I think one of the questions that Nancy has, I had opportunities to network in different things, and my name is just dropped, and I get a phone call, and somebody wants me to speak, somewhere, and I'm like, where did you see me? And it's just because my name was dropped from someone else at a different event, and they're sometimes it's about HR, other times it's about helping them with the compliance issue they have within their company, or advice on coaching. It's varying degrees, and it's just all through networking and how you show up at events, the things that you give and do because of something that you're really passionate about. You never know who is watching you. You never know. So it's really important that when you do pick those organizations, it's something that you're really passionate about giving towards and giving your time and helping other people within that organization. I hope that helped, Paula. Did that?
It does.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Carmen. I think Nancy wrote another t-shirt idea down as well. So thanks for that.
You're welcome, and so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Indeed. All right, I'm going to pause for another 15 seconds in case there are other questions, because this is about you all. So I want to make sure you're getting what you need out of this. All right. Well, so I think we talked a little bit about this, Carmen, but I'm going to tell a little story here about you. So I'm not great at remembering names and details, even with folks that I've interacted with a couple of times. Like, it takes multiple times, right, before I remember those details. And you and I attended a conference earlier this year, pre-COVID, of course, and you introduced me to someone and told me, a little bit about them as you were introducing them. And it allowed a really good conversation to ensue, which was fantastic. The benefit of having a buddy in the room, right, who can start those. And so we had a really great conversation. And then that person left the conversation, and you and I were alone for a minute or two. And you said, yeah, I just met her yesterday. And and I just remember being blown away. Like, I think my jaw may have literally hit the table, right? Because you introduced us in such a way that it really, I thought this was someone you had worked with or had spent a good amount of time with. And to learn that you just met her yesterday and you remembered like her, profession and I don't know, I don't remember what you remembered, but you remembered enough about her to leave me with this impression that you all had known each other for a good long while. I think I shared with you, I'm fantastic at that virtually behind a computer screen at work. I'm having conversations with folks, and I've got my OneNote open, right? And I'm taking notes, oh, Jenny Kimball, she has 2 kids and, her hubby, and they live in Minnesota. And sorry, Jenny, I'm telling your whole life story here, right? So, because I've got my OneNote. And then the next time I meet Jenny, I look like a genius because my OneNote allows me to remember those details, right, that she has shared. But in person at a conference like that, no, that's not, that's not happening. So you can't walk around with your notebook, right, and be, I mean, you could, but it just would not, it'd give away all your secrets. So I was so in awe of you that day. And I just wonder, what are your, tips or clues, or how do you keep all that straight? Is there a secret to keeping all the facts and information about someone straight without a notebook in hand?
So that's a great question as well. And so full disclosure, I'm not one generally that's good with names, right? So, but for me, it really is about that connection. So the more, and to be honest, in this scenario, we sat at the same table. So we were together, pretty much all day and had various conversations. And so it was easy, really, because we just really connected, because we spent pretty much the whole day together. And but it's about making that connection. It's about listening intentionally. You know, when you're going to these events, there's so much opportunity all around you. All you have to do is be willing to seize it and listen, engage, and care, you know, from the heart. You know, these are things you can probably write a book about, right? But these are, and they're all basic core things that we can learn and do. But it's about just listening intentionally, caring about the other person, you know, engaging in a way that you really care about who they are, what they do, what they're passionate about, all of those things. And then, you know, I did write down her, excuse me, her information. And that's another thing that I do too. When I attend events that evening, and it's like, I think this was a 2-day event. So that evening, I went back and I generally will look back on my notes. And that sort of prepared me too for the next day when you and I were there together, because I read over my notes that night before, and then, or you know, probably did it that morning too, because I want to be ready for how I show up to an event, you know, to get to know people. And then reach back out. If it's a 2-day event, reach back out and say hello to the people that I met the day before. You know, that is what starts the connection and building that relationship with that individual. So yeah, those are tips that you do to make sure that that person stays, you know, top of mind. You know, that it's not just the name to you, and that's important.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, okay, I'm gonna give one last opportunity for anyone in the audience who has a question or comment for Carmen, and then I'm trying to be a good steward of time, so we're right at the 10-minute mark. All right. Well, Carmen, oh, sorry, thought I heard a voice. Carmen, I always like to leave these calls with one piece of advice or call to action. We've had multiple throughout this conversation, so definitely I hope folks are taking note. But if you had one thing you wanted someone to leave here armed with, what would your one piece of advice or call to action be to our audience today?
I would say to be honest with yourself in terms of where your fear lies, right? Have that conversation, you know, with yourself on why that fear is there, and start to build on that faith in yourself, you know, and because you can do all things. But it's about breaking down those fears so that the faith that you have in yourself is bigger than your fear. And then, just like I said earlier, you know, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. You know, it's about having the courage just to speak and ask, but at the same time, not be fearful if you get a no, because in reality, the majority of us in these types of situations, it is a yes. Most people do want to help someone. They want to reach forward and help and give and connect, and they want to reach back. So this is a long response, but I want to share this. So Pam, you know, when you had this, when you did the announcement about this, I noticed that she chimed in on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm putting Pam on the spot. I hadn't spoken to Pam in I don't know how long. So what did I do? I went to LinkedIn. I went to see, when was the last time that we connected or that one of us reached out. And in 2015, Pam reached out to me and she had an ask and I didn't see it. I missed it. And I felt so bad, felt so terrible. So I reached out to her. And around that time, I was traveling quite a bit, had a lot going on, which she understood. But I had no fear of just reaching out and say, hey, I hope you attend this networking event with Nancy. Let's connect. So we did, that same week. We got caught up. I know where she is right now, and she's an HR professional as well. And we just got caught up, and it was like no time went by whatsoever. And
I wish you could see I'm nodding my head because it was such a, it's funny how you're always afraid to reach out to someone maybe you haven't talked to in a while because it's like, oh, now I'm reaching out for quote unquote help and I need this and I need that. But you'd be surprised at how life-saving your outreach can be for someone. And I was literally kind of at a little bit of a breaking point right when she reached out. So it was definitely a turning point for me. And I'm so grateful that you didn't have the fear and you just said, I know it's been 5 years, I'm going to reach out.
Absolutely, yes. And so you catch up and then you see how you can help that individual and they in return, want to, because Pam said, how can I help you? What are you doing these days? And so, and that's what it's about. That's when it's genuine. Regardless of how much time that goes by, you can make an impact in someone's life. And so it goes back to my simple definition of what networking is. It's about making that connection and being able to reach forward and help someone and reach backwards as well, even when time has gone by.
That is amazing. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Pamela, for adding your commentary there as well. I am ready. I'm jumping off of this call and jumping on LinkedIn. I'm about to get started. It's good stuff. Seriously, Carmen, thank you so much. I personally have benefited from your wisdom and knowledge in the last 6 months or so that we've known each other. Feel like I've known you my entire life because, again, that connection, right? And to your point earlier, if it doesn't feel like a natural connection, that's all right, right? That's you can move on. But when it does, your life is so much better as a result of it. So thank you for the value you add to my life and the value that you added in this forum. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Everyone, feel free to reach out to me and connect. I'm happy to connect with you and to further have a discussion or how I can help you in any way.
Indeed, indeed. Please do. If you want to learn more about Carmen, the fabulous Carmen G. West, please do reach her via LinkedIn or her business website, which I believe is westadvantagehumanresources.com. And to her point, reach out to the others that were on this call, right? That's kind of an aha moment for me. So for those who are on this call that I haven't connected with, I would love to connect with you and reach out with one another as well. If you enjoyed today's discussion, I do invite you to follow Genuine Leadership Matters on LinkedIn. You can join our Facebook group community where we try to keep these kind of discussions going, throughout the week, throughout the day. And you can join our community at genuineleadershipmatters.com. Where we're really putting up a lot of leadership material and intentional leadership, right? That's really the end of the line, making sure that we all show up intentionally. Thank you again. Felt like an amazing hour to me. Went by kind of fast, but here we are. So thanks to you again, Carmen. Thanks to our participants for your active participation. As always, if you have feedback or suggestions for future Genuine Talks, please don't hesitate to reach out and share your thoughts. Otherwise, make the rest of your week absolutely amazing. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.